All right. Well, good morning, AP Gov. So great to see there's 40 of us in here today. That's awesome. Glad that you guys are kind of here to get the information. If you haven't read already, some of the updates that came out from College Board on Friday, waited to get some clarity, waited to kind of put our ideas together. So I kind of wanted to split our time in three parts. So I want to spend about 10 minutes talking about the test. I want to spend 10 minutes going over kind of what the next few weeks are going to look like as far as pacing and schedule. And then I want to spend a few minutes kind of going over the main ideas from Unit 1. So my hope is that I try to keep this to a firm 30 minutes or less. If you need to click out for any reason, you go right ahead. I'm recording everything, and as everything I've recorded, I post to YouTube. I'll throw those links up on Canvas. If you have questions, as always, throw them into the chat box. I will try to address those as we get to them. But like I said, I wanted to split our time in between the expectations of the new test, kind of what our plan is moving forward now that we know what the test looks like, and then the last piece kind of looking at some things from chapters 2 and 3. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start sharing my screen, and we'll go into here. Well, this first one, like the information is in two different spaces. Um, let's see here. Okay. The first document that I have listed is just something that I took. It's the AP website. I just put all the information there together in one spot. So before, our test was supposed to be Monday, May 4th. Now it is Monday, May 11th. So May 11th is the testing date. That will be when you will be taking the AP government exam. The time of the test is 2 p.m. our time. So one of the differences between where it was before and where it is now, everybody, no matter where you live, is taking it at the same exact time. So it's 2 o'clock here, but it's going to be, 1 o'clock in California. It's going to be 4 o'clock in New York, but it is 2 p.m. Local time. So it's 2 p.m. Mountain on May 11th. It used to be, broken up into multiple choice, free response. Now it is only free response questions. There are two of them. The first question, you will have 25 minutes to respond, to read and respond to question one. And then they've built in 5 minutes to upload that response. So my interpretation is you can do it on a phone, an iPad, a Chromebook, a computer. You can write it out, take a picture, and upload it to the website. There are lots of options for you. If you are watching this on YouTube because of any sort of computer or technology, you're having a hard time accessing Wi-Fi or whatever that might be, you need to let myself and Mr. Symington know as soon as possible that would be something we need to, or that the College Board needs to be aware of. But you'll have 25 minutes to write and respond, 5 minutes to upload. Once you've uploaded that response, okay, you can't go back to it. The second question, you'll have 15 minutes to respond to the second question with 5 minutes to upload. Once you've uploaded it, it's gone. The other thing is that it is only, see, it is only covering units 1, 2, and 3. So it's covering democracy and the Constitution, so federalism. It's covering Unit 2, which are all three branches in the bureaucracy, and Unit 3, civil rights and civil liberties. Emma, it's going to be something College Board is going to send you. It's going to be done on your device, a computer, whatever it might be, through the internet. Phoenix, I'll get to that in a minute. So yeah, units 1, 2, and 3 is what is going to be covered. So good news is we've taught everything. Not every student in the country is on that same schedule. Unfortunately, some of the political parties, participation interest groups, linkage institutions, that stuff's not going to be covered. But it's good to know that it's only units 1, 2, and 3. There is a makeup day and time, which is Monday, June 1st at 10 a.m. My impression is that unless you have, extenuating circumstances, that everyone at Legend High School is expected to take the test on May 11th at 2 p.m. If there is an issue that someone needs to be aware of, you need to let us know ASAP. So I'll go through kind of the grading structure, but question one, 25 minutes, is worth 60% of the overall score. And surprise, surprise, I never thought that they would do it, but they are. It's the argumentative essay. Now, before you start hyperventilating and going, but Mr. Fleet, 45 minutes was what we were given before, or 40 minutes was what we were given before. How are we doing this in 25? Well, good news and bad news is they've changed the rubric. So they've gotten rid of the alternative perspective. They've gotten rid of, rebuttals. They've gotten rid of those sorts of things. Again, it's writing that claim, it's providing evidence and reasoning behind the evidence, but I'll show you a more detailed version of the rubric here in a minute. So the first question is the argumentative essay. The second question is your FRQ number 1, the concept analysis. So the one that we've practiced already. There is no change to the grading rubric for that guy. So that's, again, a 3-pointer. It's going to give you a scenario and you're going to respond A, B, and C. So it's the same as FRQ number 1. The argumentative essay, or the question 1 on this test, it follows the FRQ 4. They've given an additional point for that second piece of evidence. They've given an additional point for the reasoning, and they've gotten rid of the alternative perspective. So they took part of the essay away, and they're giving you more points for some of the things that you were doing anyway. So that's kind of your good news, bad news scenario. I'll go through the presentation here in a minute. There's a link here to AP Security. We'll talk about that in a minute. If you're in other AP classes, there are doing review sessions. That's the main AP College Board YouTube channel. This is the US government or AP government YouTube playlist, so that's specific to this course. The daily videos they post at about 1 p.m., and that's done through YouTube Live. So that's the first document there. So I would like to go into this guy here. This is just a little bit more pretty version of some of the information we've already talked about, but this transitions into kind of what to expect as we go through the rest of the class. So yeah, new test. There's a little bit of a different schedule for us moving forward this week and in the next few weeks, and a new focus. I was just in meetings today, and I want you to believe me when I say this. Your health, your safety, your family's health and safety is more important to me than scores in a grade book right now, more than ever. But I want to work with you on kind of what that looks like, and I need you to be adaptive, responsive, and flexible, the same as I've had to been on how some of this is going to work out. I don't have all the answers today, probably won't have them tomorrow, but we're going to get through this together, guys. So 45 minutes at home, FRQ only. Question number 1 is that argument essay. Respond to a prompt with a thesis and 2 pieces of specific evidence. Nothing has changed. It's going to give you a scenario. It's going to give you documents that you can use. You have to use one of those documents at least, and a second piece of evidence. The second piece of evidence could be another document. It could be content knowledge. Here's what's amazing. Who would have thought you can use your binders on the AP test? So I hope those of you who spent your time doing them with integrity and fidelity are going to be rewarded. If you've just blown through all of your pink sheets and all of your documents in your binder, now there's no time like the present to go back and review some of the information on that, because you can use your binders. It already has all your documents. It has all the things in there. Like you guys are set up so awesome for this test. I saw a question pop up here. It used to be 40 minutes, Camille. That's why they've cut the rebuttal piece, or the alternative perspective piece, out of there. Question number 2, concept analysis, A, B, and C, knowledge from the course. This is going to be the one that's going to be the hardest to prepare for, but again, it's open notes. So let's see how your notes held up. So here is the revised rubric. So before it used to be 6 points, which included that rebuttal piece. So now, again, you're getting 1 point for your claim or thesis. Some people say a two-party government is worse for American democracy. Some people might say campaign finance reform has been worse for American democracy because of A and B. There has been really no changes to the way the thesis is graded. Again, to earn the point, you can't just restate or rephrase the prompt. You have to establish that line of reasoning. And that's where people are going to get tripped up. You won't get the point if you restate the prompt. You won't get the point if you don't make a claim responding to the prompt. Because of this information that I'm going to tell you about, that establishes your line of reasoning. Josh, yeah, all of them are going to be like that, but you would need to check with your specific teacher as far as any changes. I know, I got to be honest, guys, I only paid attention to the AP Gov stuff. Row B, this is where all these green boxes, this is where the changes come in. So before, the evidence and reasoning were again, they were separate, but it was 3 points and 1 point for the reasoning. Now it's 4 and 2. So if I'm looking here, to get 4 points, you need to have 2 pieces of specific and relevant evidence that support your claim or thesis. Okay, so that's, again, they're going to give you the list of required documents that you can use. And again, most of those documents, I think that really leaves all the documents on the table. I don't think there was any documents that were left over into units 4 and 5. And I think that's part of the reason why they kept it. So you're looking at everything from the Declaration of Independence and the Federalist Papers through letter from a Birmingham jail. So you're looking here at, does the evidence, it's not just enough to say Federalist 10, you have to say what specific piece out of Federalist 10 or Federalist 51, and why does it support your thesis? You have to give that evidence point there. The reasoning down here, 1 or 2 points, it's why one piece of evidence supports your claim or why both pieces of evidence support your claim. So now they're just wanting you to be as specific as possible. Abby, is it possible to get all the points on the FRQs and not get a 5? I have no idea. We've never really known what the scoring breakdown is, like what you have to get. They've always just been best guesses. Camille, do I think 25 minutes will be enough time? It has to be. It has to be. I think part of it becomes the fact that you have some notes there and that you're not kind of like just circling the drain. I think it's going to be tight. I think you're going to be writing, but I think the way they have it broken down, I think you'll be fine. That's why they built that separate 5 minutes in for uploading your response. You'll have the full 25. So, like many college level exams, this year's AP exams will be open book, open note. Okay. There's some tips that the College Board has shared there for how it goes. So, Curtis, I think you should study every document. I'm just saying that every document is covered in units 1, 2, and 3. And I think letter from a Birmingham jail, like you should have a couple quotes, you should have the reasoning, like that basically your pink sheet needs to be solid. Josh, should we just write it instead of planning it first? Hopefully after the next few weeks, you'll have a better idea of how that's going to look. So before I get into this, something about test security. One of the things that they've mentioned is, yes, this is open book, this is open notes, like you can use whatever sources are at your disposal, but all of your answers are going to be run through plagiarism software. So I'm like something like a turnitin.com. I think they're going to be looking for, your thought and not you just copying and pasting from a website. They have spent a lot of time reiterating the fact that students who are caught plagiarizing or cheating, that those reports will be sent out. The other thing about it is I will get all of your responses back. Now, granted, we can pay, and Legend High School typically does pay to get your scores, to get your little booklets that you would write everything in back anyway. But there's not a lot of identifying information, and I kind of have to go through and play detective if I want to figure out whose is what. I'm getting all of your responses back. So the fact that, I mean, I think there has to be a balance there of, yeah, it's open book, it's open notes, there's only so many ways to do it, but if everyone's just kind of copying and pasting from the internet or from someone else's response or whatever it might be, that they're really looking to catch you on this. So take it as you will. So here's I'm going to get through the schedule and then I'll stop for questions. Our schedule moving forward, and it has the ability to change, but on Tuesdays, I'm going to be looking at doing a 30-minute Zoom lecture on 1 or 2 chapters within units 1, 2, and 3. So Tuesday, kind of everybody's all together. I'm going to do this. I'll record it. I'll post it to YouTube. That'll be kind of our Tuesday plan. For block days, the block day time, I am expecting that you take a practice test. And what I mean by that is there's an FRQ for this week. Granted, there's only going to be one. It's an argument. My expectation is during that block day time that's what you are doing, that you are going through and doing that. And then on Friday, we'll come back together for, again, 30 minutes to score yourself, to kind of go over the FRQ prompt for that week, and to be able to ask questions. During your block time, I'm adding an optional 20-minute Zoom check-in. Mic's on, camera's on, and it's going to start during your regularly scheduled block day class period. So 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 8th at the beginning of your regularly scheduled time. It's a 20-minute check-in, and that's just to kind of break down these groups into smaller amounts. If you want to have a conversation, if you have questions, if you have things that we need to take care of, that would be something that we do during that block time. So on your block day, writing an FRQ and having a 20-minute check-in with me is kind of what you are doing. And Mondays are your recovery. No expectations from me on Monday. You'll get a kind of a schedule for the week during Mondays. Kind of, here's where we're going. This is what we're doing. Here's the logins. Here's the passwords. But Mondays are in my world your day off. Okay. And I need you guys to keep up the good work. You've done so well so far. You guys have been pretty flexible. So there is that. So I'm going to stop sharing that for a second. Are there any questions on the AP test itself or our schedule for the next week? Oopsie. Phoenix, I know I have poor internet connection. Phoenix, let's chat with that during our time Thursday. Okay. So Jordan, yeah, no multiple choice, Jordan. It's just 2 FRQ questions. Okay, give me 1 second. So Kaylee, with the 50-minute practice test. So the practice tests are going to be those FRQs. Those are going to be, you're going to score yourself, but if you complete them, you will get points for that. I hope to have some more clear, this is what we're looking at for grading for all the things we've done already and the things that we're doing moving forward next Monday. So I'd like to have a portion of our Tuesday time kind of discussing grading as we go. Chris, I have no idea about the SAT next week. I would look on the College Board website. That would have all the information there. Do you know if we... I think it cut. I don't know. I think it's a 25-minute cutoff. That the same as anything that it gives you that 5 minutes to upload. So I would not count on having a second more than 25 minutes. Okay. So let's go back here. Oh, yep, you can see my emails. Okay, so Unit 1 for this week, in reality, the two chapters that we covered were chapters 2 and chapter 3 from the textbook. So on Canvas, on both the announcements and the remote learning page, I've included the chapters 1, 2, and 3 practice quizzes, the Unit 1 practice quiz, all of the resources linked on the Canvas page itself. Those are all there for your use to kind of go back and review. But this is kind of the bare minimum when it comes to Constitution and the federalism questions. So again, when we talk back to the Declaration, and this is your pink sheets, like you probably should go back and make sure those pink sheets are filled out as best you can, considering you can use them on the AP test. Again, the king had abused his power. This is our breakup letter to Great Britain. So again, you start looking at Jefferson's definition of natural rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those things that kind of our foundation of our government was based on, that declaration was in response to the king abusing his power and their frustration with how our natural rights have been abused. The Articles of Confederation, remember, that's that first system of government that was in place after we've declared our independence, and we started talking about limited government. We didn't want this government with all of these powers, and it gave most of the power to the states, okay? And again, so you look at that being the popular sovereignty being outlined in the Articles of Confederation. So again, we start looking at comparing the Federalists and Anti-Federalists. Federalist 10, remember, talked about the danger of factions and that a large republic was best suited to limit the power of factions, whereas Anti-Federalists, Brutus 1, okay, said a small republic gives people the most say. So when we start looking at the theories of democracy, you look at Federalists being supported by that pluralist and elite models versus the Anti-Federalists really looking at a participatory model of democracy. What highlighted the weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation was Shays' Rebellion. Okay, remember, Massachusetts farmers were promised to be paid money. They never got that money. They lost the farms. They started dragging the judges out and tar and feathering them in the streets. There was no military to come in and squash it because it was the military that was doing the uprising. So that really highlighted the weaknesses there in the Articles of Confederation. The three compromises that were discussed in Unit 1, Connecticut Compromise. Remember, you had the Virginia plan favoring big states. You had the New Jersey plan favoring small states. Connecticut Compromise created the bicameral House, okay? The 3/5 compromise, when we start looking at state population for representation in the House, South Carolina, 80% of the South Carolina was slaves. And the North state saying, well, no, if they can't vote and they're slaves, they shouldn't count for your representation. So the 3/5 compromise said, hey, slaves count as 3/5 of a person in regards to state population. And the compromise on including a Bill of Rights. Remember, the Constitution was drafted and a Bill of Rights were not included. It needed the Anti-Federalist support there, so they threw in the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, that promoted, specific liberties, it protected individual liberties, one of those big factors there for the Anti-Federalists. So some elements of the bicameral House. You have the upper house and the Senate. Each state gets 2 senators, regardless of population. Lower house, each state gets more or less based on population. All of this outlined in Article 1 of the Constitution. The amendment process, and you guys are going to see this in a couple, maybe next week when we start looking at the amendment process in our argumentative essay. Amendments can be proposed amendments may be proposed in both houses or at a national convention. That's where they need a 2/3 vote, but then they need 3/4 of state legislatures or state level conventions in order for the amendment to be ratified. Remember, that's how the Equal Rights Amendment kind of died in the 70s, was it never got that 3/4 vote. Checks and balances, that quote that should be in your Fed 51 pink sheet, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. This is where we're looking at the separation of powers, the 3 branches, the power of the president to veto actions of Congress, the advice and consent judicial review, that courts can go back and revisit those decisions, the system of checks and balances, and separation of powers outlined in Fed 51. The necessary and proper clause of the Constitution, okay? Remember, the founders thought that Congress, the legislature, would be the most powerful branch, and they gave them those enumerated powers, those powers that were expressly written out, but they also left it open for implied powers, that there are some things that are going to come up that are just within the realm of you doing your job as a legislature, that we don't have to spell out explicitly for you. In the 10th Amendment, okay, any power not outlined in the Constitution thus goes to the states, but they cannot contradict the Constitution due to that supremacy clause. So the 10th Amendment says anything that we don't say goes to the states unless we say so otherwise. So in Unit 1, again, we looked at U.S. versus Lopez. Remember, that was the gun case wrapped up in a Commerce Clause case. If Congress can pass a Gun-Free School Zones Act under the guise of a Commerce Clause, then what doesn't fall under commerce? And then again, you look at McCulloch versus Maryland, okay? Those would be 2 Supreme Court cases that you kind of see balancing out these powers. Now this right here, this slide, ignore this slide. If you are Mr. Fleet students, ignore this slide. This is Mr. Vanderveer's slide. Those are not going to correlate. I've already communicated our schedule already. It's on the Canvas calendar. It's on our remote learning page. So once I've done that, let's see here. Any questions I haven't gotten to yet? Will you be opening our past quizzes and tests so we can use them to study? The interims and summatives, no. Because some of those are coming from secure sources. I think right now the best way to study, okay, for this test is your binders, your 1-pagers, and the FRQs that we're going to be doing at least, well, 1 this week, and we're doing 2 every week until the test itself. So we're looking ahead at this week. I hate jumping back and forth, but let's go back here and so yeah, so I've linked all the Unit 1 resources, the Unit 1 practice quizzes, the Unit 1 or the Chapter 1, 2, and 3 practice quizzes. But this right here, this is one that's specific to Unit 1, and it's an argumentative essay. Talks about establishing a federal system of government, develop an argument whether the expanded powers benefits or hinders policymaking. It gives you the articles, Brutus 1 and Federalist 10 as your documents to pull from, and this is kind of what you would be looking at. You can respond to this. I would, again, encourage you to take your time during block day, Wednesday or Thursday, to respond to this prompt. And then we will discuss this on Friday. This is going to be, I feel that if the test itself is 2 FRQs, that's going to be the best way to kind of review some of that. But that, again, is already posted there for you. All the previous practice quizzes are open. I've also on AP Classroom unlocked units 1, 2, and 3 in its entirety. So there are multiple choice FRQs on AP Classroom that I've unlocked that you can use. You can use that to practice. So yeah, that's kind of where I would be going at this point. So any other questions right now? Quickly eclipsing my 30-minute promise, but that's okay. Okay, so let's rehash the main points here. Test is May 11th. It's at 2 p.m. There are 2 FRQs, 1 argumentative essay, 1 concept analysis. You're going to take it on a device. It's going to be open book, open note. You can use your textbook, you can use your binders, you can use anything at your disposal. On block days, we're going to have smaller check-ins where we can do questions one-on-one. Also take time on your block day to respond to those prompts. On Friday afternoons, we will come back together, we'll kind of discuss the prompt in itself, kind of what an answer should be looking for. And yeah, on next week, I hope to have some more specific information about grading. I can assure you right now that whatever grade you left with on March 13th in my classroom, it cannot go less than that. It will stay there or increase based on what we're doing. Now, how that comes up, how that looks, we will get there, and I'll get you more specific, detailed information on Monday. But rest assured, whatever grade you had on March 13th, it cannot go below that. If you had a 92, a 92 is the lowest it's going to go. If you had a 68, the lowest it's going to go is a 68. Anything you do will only help your grade. Pinky swear. Okay? Any questions for me for the good of the order? Okay. I'm going to download this and put to my computer. I'll post it to YouTube here in a little bit. So tomorrow, I'm looking at my calendar being, I'll see period 3 starting at about 10:05. I'll see period 5 tomorrow at 12:15. I'll see period 7 at 1:45. On Thursday, I'll see 8th period starting again at about 1:45. Those are optional 20-minute check-ins. We can just kind of have a conversation. I will say between now and Friday, I will send out a link to a Google form. What I'd like to be able to do is just check in on you and make sure that you are okay, and give you an opportunity to communicate with me one-on-one without it feeling like I'm singling anybody out. But the Google form will be one of those things like worth points just by clicking a few buttons and saying, I'm here, I can see Canvas, we're good to go, or hey, Fleet, I really need some help on a couple things. So other than that, guys, if you have questions between now and then, let me know. Be safe. It's going to be a beautiful day. I plan on being in the driveway getting some sun. I hope you do the same. All right? Be safe out there, guys. Wash your hands. Give your family a hug, and I'll see you tomorrow.